Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro podcast, the business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name's Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors now with websites and local search. I help new chiropractors get started, stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today we're going to talk about playing the hand that you are dealt. We're going to talk about the fact that you are not somebody else. You are not somebody on a podcast you listen to. You're not somebody you heard on a stage somewhere at a seminar. You're not even the chiropractor down the road. And you're not me. You're not a Dr. Jerry Kennedy, God forbid. And I think that's probably the best news of the day. You are you. And your situation and your circumstances are going to be unique. And if you don't play the hand that you're dealt, the likelihood of you being successful as a chiropractor goes down drastically. So we're going to unpack what that means on this podcast. Now, before I get too far into that, I do want to say if you want a better chiropractic website, go to Rocket Chiro, check out my websites, reach out to me through there. If you'd like me to look at your website and local SEO, I can show you how you compare to other chiropractors in your area and give you some advice. It'll be a custom video specifically for you. You can request a website and SEO review. If you are one of my website clients, I do offer local search help, so local SEO help, local kind of AI search help. And you could reach out to me, but you have to be an existing website client for me to do local search for you. Last thing I'll say is this, is if you want to go beyond the podcast, if you want some additional advice, you want some additional structure, some additional trainings, and you want access to me, check out my Next Step trainings. It's Next Step program. It's really great. It's month to month. It's really great for chiropractors getting started, chiropractors who are feeling stuck. It's just a great place for that demographic. When I started creating Next Step, I didn't really know what it was. I just was creating it for some chiropractor clients that I was working for, doing some other stuff, and I saw some shortcomings, and I thought to myself, what's the resource? Like, what's the information that I would want to know or would have wanted to know when I started my practice? And that's sort of what it is. It's just a really good, affordable help library for chiropractors that are in those situations. So all that can be found at rocketchiro.com. So the other day I watched this video, and I don't even know who the guy was, but he was describing a situation where he was listening to this band, and he didn't say what band it was, but he just said it was a really famous band. There's tons of people that are in this arena listening to this band, and the band decided to take a moment during their concert to describe this new album that they were going to be creating. And what he said is this band basically described an album that wasn't the music they normally do. And he said his immediate thought was, those aren't your cards. Like, that's not the hand that you've been dealt. And you're trying to do something that isn't your thing. And nobody here, the people that are interested in what you're doing, people that are excited about what you're doing, like, they're not interested in what you're talking about because that's not what makes them interested in you. And it's sort of a clunky way of saying that, but I was thinking about that as it relates to chiropractors. And I have had a lot of experience dealing with young chiropractors because that does, with the Next Step program and even with this podcast, like people that are, if you have 6 practices and you're working on your $2 million instead of $1 million a year, if that's what you're working on, you're most likely not listening to like chiropractic podcasts, especially one like this, where we talk about business and marketing stuff. We're really talking about growth stuff. I mean, this podcast and the materials that I have in Next Step is designed for people that are stuck or getting started or people that are trying to like reach that next level. They're not people that are on the mountaintop trying to find another mountain. And so as a result of that, I find myself around people who are trying to figure out who they are. And this can be a really difficult thing. I made a lot of mistakes about this in practice. I have made a lot of mistakes about this even since I've done Rocket Chiro, with just not being clear and not being honest about who I am and what my situation is. And let me I just wrote down some basic things as far as like how chiropractors are different, but it's quite extensive. I mean, it's adjustment skills, there are people skills, marketing skills, problem solving skills, personalities, opportunities, timing, finances, family structure. It's all different. Even if you open up a practice right next to somebody else at the exact same time in the exact same town, you have different adjustment skills, you have different people skills, you have different marketing skills. You have different problem solving skills. You have different personalities. Your opportunities might be similar if you both don't know anyone. But if that person knows the mayor or somebody famous and you don't, they have opportunities that you don't have. So the likelihood of you even having the same opportunities is not the same. Your finances aren't going to be the same unless you're both at zero. It's like, I remember when I got out of school, I got a loan. So everybody kind of went different ways. Like I had really good credit. My dad had taught me from a young age to build credit and take care of my credit. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I did have really good credit. And so I was able to get a pretty significant loan and start my practice that way. But I had other friends that graduated that they didn't have any money. Like they had no money and bad credit, and they started a smaller situation, something completely different, something that I wouldn't have done, but that's what they did. I had another person that was in my class that was, this person was married and their spouse had a really good income and a really good job. And that person started their career with a lot of personal financial backing. That person started their career knowing that they didn't even have to be successful financially there was no family burden for them to be successful. Their spouse was more than making enough money to provide for the family. And so that person was in a completely different situation. And I'm not saying that one's right or wrong or anything else. I mean, I could tell you that ones that I would prefer over the other. I would much rather be the person who has a spouse that's doing great than someone who's like broke and has nothing and has a wife and 3 kids. Like I would much rather be in that situation. But here's the thing, like you can't control that. You just can't. I mean, you could obviously not. I mean, if you're single when you graduate, my advice to you, being someone who got married right at the same time I was opening my first practice, I don't think it's the smartest thing in the world because there's a lot of stress with starting a practice, and you add a family to it, there's even more stress. So I think that there's certain things that you can control and you can avoid to make your life harder than it has to be. But you don't have to take my advice on that. I mean, I didn't take my own advice on that. So I'm just saying that everyone's different. Everyone's situation is different. And there's a saying that says that people tend to imitate before they innovate. So you have mentors, people online. I mean, you might listen to my podcast, like whatever, people at seminars. And the good news is that there's a lot of information that's available now that wasn't available years ago. Like even when I mean, it seems like a million years ago when I got out of school, but it was over 20 years ago. And back then there wasn't videos on YouTube. There wasn't podcasts. There wasn't, the only thing that you could get if you wanted to get help was you had to either have a mentor that you knew. So it would be your chiropractor or somebody you met or whatever, that would be someone that would take you under their wing. It would be possibly somebody you worked for if somebody brought you in as an associate and they filled that mentor role. Or there was practice management. What practice management looked like is you would sign up for this program. You might see something online, or you might hear about this thing, or you were referred from a friend or whatever. And you'd go to these seminars, and there would probably be, I don't know, 3-4 of them a year. You'd have to travel to go to the seminar. They'd give you the book. Like every practice management group had their book. And then they would have calls that you would do with a coach every single month. And it would be very expensive. It was $500, $800, $1,500 a month or more to be a part of this group, which essentially was the right to go to a seminar and one phone call a month. And that's what you got. And I will tell you, from having been in many different practice management groups, where when I was in practice, I didn't even know where to go for help, but I was constantly looking. And I think I had been a part of 4 or 5 different groups. So I would consider that many. Maybe not, maybe you don't. I can tell you this, they don't adapt, at least back in the day, and it could be different now, but they don't adapt. They have their cookie cutter way of doing things. This is what you're supposed to say. This is how you're supposed to look. This is what you're supposed to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a bunch of little us's around the world, and they're going to do the exact same thing that we did, and they're going to get the exact same results, and they're going to be successful too. Like, because we were successful doing X, Y, Z, so they're going to be successful doing X, Y, Z. Here's the problem with that. It's all the stuff we talked about. Skills, people skills, marketing skills, opportunity, like all that stuff is different. The whole notion, and this is said so much in our society, the whole notion that if I can do it, anyone can do it. That is a BS statement. It just is. That is not true. If I can do it, someone else can do it. That is true. If I can do it, anyone can do it is a nonsense baloney statement. It's not true. And if you think that's true, you start going down this path of trying to do something that you can't do because you lack the skills, you lack the opportunity, you lack the finances, you lack the whatever. There's a unique combination of circumstances that allowed that person to be successful. Now, in some cases, there are things that can be replicated. There are principles, there are concepts, there are habits, there are things that are foundational to success that can be replicated. There's even strategies that could be, wow, that's really great. But even one of the things that I mentioned before is timing. Like I heard the guys that are on YouTube, they've been on YouTube forever now, the Dude Perfect guys. I heard them talking the other day about, they were joking about when they got started on YouTube. And they made the comment like the analogy was when they got started on YouTube, it was basically like trying to play ball on like a low level D3 team. Like it's basically like if you want to walk on to like a crappy school, the likelihood of you getting to play is really good. And likelihood of you getting lots of playing time is good. And that sort of idea. And they made the comment that like YouTube now is like the pros. And so if you think about it, it's like, oh, they're super successful now, but if you decided like, oh, in 2026, I'm going to become the next Dude Perfect or whatever, and people try this stuff all the time, the likelihood of you doing what they've done, even if you have all the same skills, personalities, and everything else, the timing is still off. Like they started that. And this is true for chiropractic practice too. Like you'll see people that, we joke about the Mercedes 80s. I don't know if you young guys have ever heard that term before, but in our generation, we joke about the Mercedes 80s. It's like all the chiropractors in the 80s had Mercedes because they were billing insurance like crazy, and insurance was paying for everything. And, all the chiropractors were making bank. And so even if you said like, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that my chiropractor did in the 80s, and now he has like 5 clinics and he's super successful, like you don't have the same timing. Like you're coming in at a different point and you have different circumstances, even if you have all the exact same skills, which you don't. So that notion is a problem. And so the whole idea of when you imitate someone, the problem with that is that you are playing someone else's hand. And also you don't even have full context. Because here's the other thing that nobody wants to talk about is that everybody's lying. I don't mean everybody's lying, but everybody's lying. And what I mean by that is that you have these people that stand up on seminars and they talk about how great their life is and how successful they are. A lot of them are just lying. And even if you are like really, really successful and you're really, really genuine, that person has stuff in their life that's terrible. They just do. And I know that it's like they don't talk about it. Like I don't get on here, and not that I'm not successful. Like I'm just not. Like I am like carving out a small little space in the world. Like I don't consider myself successful. I'm definitely not rich. Nothing like that. But there are people that listen to my podcast all the time that have an impression of me that is just not accurate. I can be terribly insecure. I can be terribly have awful struggles with anxiety. I have arguments and fights with family members and people that are around me. And you may assume that my life is great. You may assume that I have everything that I want, body, soul, and spirit. I don't. I got crap in my life just like everybody else does. And the problem is that when you start looking around at what everybody's doing and you're watching this person and whatever, and you get all of these ideas of what it looks like to be successful and you try to copy it, you're trying to be somebody that you're not, first of all. And secondly, you're assuming that you know what their life is like, and you're probably getting way more frustrated with your life because it's not measuring up to their life when you don't know how bad their life is. It's just terrible. It really is genuinely terrible to go down this route. So what do we do instead? What we do instead is this. Now, I've said this on the podcast before. I talked to my son about this recently because he was talking about school and college and whatever. I think there's three main things that will lead to big change quickly. And I'm going to consider these like the big three because I think that they're foundational to your success, even long-term success. And these three big things are interest, skills, and opportunity. So if there's a Venn diagram somewhere where all these things overlap, if you see that you have an interest in something, you have the skill to do it, and you have the opportunity to execute that thing. If those three things overlap, that space is where you're going to find the greatest opportunity for big change quickly. Now, a lot of times those things don't align, and what you end up having to do is you have to create your opportunity. You have to maybe find something else that you're interested in, or learn, do something new that you're not necessarily, you don't know that you're interested in it yet. There's skills that need to be developed. You don't come out of chiropractic college knowing how to run a small business. Like you don't go, if somebody graduated with a business degree and then they were told once they graduated that they had to go be a chiropractor, they would be horrified because they weren't taught how to be a chiropractor. But when the flip side of it is true and you go to school to be a chiropractor and then you leave and they say, oh, now go be a small business owner, for whatever reason, human beings seem to think that that is not as scary, and you should be horrified by that. Because the failure rate for small businesses is very, very high. And that's because people don't innately know how to run a small business, no matter how good you are as a chiropractor or baking cakes or fixing cars. Running a small business is different. It's a different skill. And so anytime you have interest, skill, and opportunity that overlap, that's big change territory. That's a really, really ripe soil. Now, if you look at big change over time, it's very similar. You need interest, skill, and opportunity, but you also need to add to it structure and consistency. Now, those things are super boring. And when I was getting started, that was not stuff that I would have ever talked to you about because I like to fly by the seat of my pants and rely on my personality and my skills to get things done. And that will only take you so far. For me, did not take me very far at all. And so you have to add to that structure and consistency. And the structure gives you guardrails. The structure raises the bar. It raises the standard. It's like, this is how we're going to be and this is how we're going to operate. The structure allows you to test concepts. If you're doing different things all the time, every day with different people, you have no idea if what you're doing is working. There's no consistency. There's no baseline. You have to have structure. And I'm not a person who's naturally structured. I've said that already, and I'll say it again. This goes completely against my nature. But structure is necessary. Now, I will tell you this. For some people that are my wife is very detailed, a very particular human being. Structure is her love language. Like, she just loves it. And I'm not like that at all. And so for her, structure might look like something incredibly detailed. For me, structure may look like a few outlines and bullet points. So structure doesn't have to look the same, but you do have to have structure. You have to have a plan. You got to have a method to your madness. All right. So what do we do? Number one is be honest about your big three. Where is your interest? Where's your skill? And where's your opportunity? And don't limit yourself to what you have currently, but just be honest about what it is. If you're getting out of school and you don't have any money, like, starting a micro practice is not insulting or degrading. It's where you are. That's the hand you're dealt. If you got out of school and you got no money and you got a family and you're starting a micro practice and you don't have any patients and you have to go get another job, like, screw everybody else for thinking that that's not okay. Like, listen, you should not be okay with doing it long term. You should be trying to get to the point where you're working full time. But I know plenty of chiropractors who have gotten second jobs while they're getting their practice going. And I know a bunch of other, I know chiropractors that would scoff at that. But you know what? Try to pay your bills with other people's opinions and see how much they matter. See how much they're worth. Do what you have to do. But have the goal, have the plan, head in the direction that you want to go. But for now, play the hand you're dealt. Stop acting rich when you're not rich. Stop acting successful when you're not successful. Stop trying to manifest some nonsense in your life when you lack the skills and you don't have any discipline in your life. Like, stop it. Like, start being honest about where you are. What's my skill? What's my opportunity? What are my interests? Be open to trying new things. My wife, for several years before I started doing the websites at Rocket Chiro, I was doing the next step thing, and I was doing some other stuff. And she kept telling me, you should do websites for chiropractors, because she would see that, I was working on my website and I would talk about stuff and whatever. And she would just be like, you should do websites for chiropractors. And I kept telling her no, because I thought it was going to be a hassle. And I finally tried it. I finally started doing it for a few clients, and it turns out it's actually my favorite thing. Like it's so, and I only say that because if you're not interested in something now, that doesn't mean you're not going to be interested, but you do have to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not interested and you're forcing yourself to do something, and you just keep forcing it and forcing it and forcing it, if it has to be done and you're not interested, you either need to delegate it or suck it up and create structure around the fact that it's going to get done anyway, in spite of the fact you don't want to do it. But if you're not interested, you got to be real careful, because you can start self-sabotaging. So be honest about your interest. If you don't want to see kids in practice, don't start a pediatric practice. If you don't want to see moms and babies, don't be the family chiropractor. If you don't want to see older people, don't put a bunch of old people pictures on your website. Be honest with yourself. It's okay. It's okay to not want to see kids. It's okay to not accept insurance. It's okay to whatever. Be honest. So be honest about the big three. Number 2, create structure and take advantage to take advantage or improve your big three. Sort of talked about this already, but the structure, once you've been honest about the big three, you can start saying, what are the things I need to do? What's the structure that I need to put in place to take advantage of the skills and opportunity and interest that I have? And what are the structure and opportunities structure that I can put in place to improve the big three? Because if you're lacking in skills, you have to set aside time to work on those skills. You don't find time, you make time. Last thing is just be consistent. I've said this over and over again. It's boring. I know it's not interesting or sexy, and it doesn't put butts in seats at seminars, but you got to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're just doing nothing. Final thoughts. You are who you are. You can't be anyone else, and you have to start from where you're starting from. You can't start from somewhere else. You could let it get worse and start from there, but you don't get it start from a better place without just working on it and getting better, which means you started from where you are. So your opportunities are start where you are, or let it get worse, start from there. Last thing is this: understanding principles, concepts, and strategies is more important in the long run than a specific formula that someone gives you. If you're following someone's formula, and I'm not opposed to like taking someone's advice, and I'm not opposed to taking it at 100%, like just do the program. Because there are programs out there and things, advice that's given to you that you just need to shut up and do the program. But even if you are going to shut up and do the program, even if you're a company guy, understanding the principle behind it, understanding the concept behind it, understanding the strategy, like why is this working? Why should it work? This empowers you to make better decisions going forward. It allows you the opportunity to adapt in the future, because if all you're doing, and when I first got into practice, the big thing was killer ads. And if you've never heard about killer ads, I'm sorry, because they're awesome. And killer ads were these like goldenrod copy, like story. It was like a story marketing printed on goldenrod, and you put it in a newspaper. I know that I didn't realize that makes me sound like a dinosaur. And they really worked. They really worked well. The problem with it was if another chiropractor in your town was running them, you looked stupid because you were both running the exact same stories in the exact same paper. And they did eventually run their course. But there was a moment in time there where it was really cool and it was really sweet. But the problem was this: if you don't know why that worked, if you don't understand the method, the madness, the strategy behind it, like when killer ads stopped working, I didn't take those principles and apply it to something else, because I didn't really understand at the time how that worked. I didn't understand why it worked. I didn't understand really what I was doing, or I just was doing the program. And that puts you in a really, really vulnerable place, because if you're in a situation where you're just, I'm going to say the words that my mentor says, and I'm going to open the practice my mentor opened, and I'm going to have, I'm going to do the marketing that Jerry said to do. I'm going to use the script that such and such group told me to use. That's all good and fine if it works. What if it doesn't? What if it's not that you're doing something wrong? What if you're doing the program 100% correct and it still doesn't work? Because the timing's off, the opportunity's off, your environment's different, your personality is slightly different. I don't know why, but it just doesn't work. If you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, that's a bad spot, because now you have to go find a different mentor. You have to find somebody else to tell you what to do. You're not thinking for yourself. And one of the things that somebody had told me recently about my Next Step program is they said, they started going through some of my trainings in Next Step, and they said, I really like your stuff because you're not really telling me what to do. You're just kind of telling me how to think. Yeah. That's how I teach. What I want you to do, if you're a client of mine, is I want you to be a competent small business owner. I want you to be a competent chiropractor. I want you to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And when something doesn't work, I want you to figure out why it's not working and be able to have the wisdom to sort out what to do next or what to try. Like, I had a guy that last week, we'd done some coaching calls several years ago, and he called me again and he said, hey, can we start doing some calls here over the next couple months? And I said, sure. And then he was like, well, this is what I have in mind. And he made the comment, that first call, he said, do we just need to talk through some of this, or do you want me to show up with some kind of solutions? And I was like, bro, show up with solutions, man. Like, think through it. Like, think through what you're wanting, think through what you're trying to do, and then we'll talk about it. But when you show up empty-handed, that's not good long term, because you're constantly looking around asking for somebody else to help. Help. Somebody help me. I don't know what I'm doing. You're not going to be successful if you're constantly the baby bird. You got to grow up. But it starts with being honest about your situation, being honest about your timing, your life, and all your skills, honest about what you have to work on, put some good structure in place, and press on. Start where you're at. Play the hand that you're dealt. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you want to leave a review for the podcast, you can do it in Apple Podcasts, or you can do it on Google. There's a link in the footer of Rocket Chiro. If you want me to look at your website and SEO, request a website and SEO review. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for, especially if you're a client of mine, I really appreciate it. I don't make any money from the podcast, so the ability to podcast comes from the fact that I get clients. And so, I thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. I like being able to help. Yeah, thank you. So anyway, I'm done. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.